Hi, I'm Heather Markel, business and peak lifestyle coach with Heather Begins. And in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 fears keeping you from quitting and how to overcome them. If you're thinking about quitting your full-time gig to go do something a hell of a lot more satisfying, naturally, there's going to be a lot of fears that come up. It did take me, as I mentioned in the last video, it took me about 10 years to have the courage to actually trade my thoughts and dreams into living them. It is not something to be taken lightly or done lightly. So good on you for taking the time to actually notice the things that you're afraid of and process them. I am here to tell you though that, the fears they make you aware of things that are important to you, or at least that you think are important to you at the time. That may change. So that's really good. But they don't serve you to move forward in your life. So fears help keep you rooted in the life that you have, but what you want is to change. So we need to look at those fears and find some help on tackling them. So that's what I'm going to do now. Fear number 1. Possibly the biggest fear of them all. I can't afford to quit. How am I going to make enough money to live? Yeah, money ends up being probably the crucial fear at the top of the list about survival and thriving and all that stuff. And what I would say is there are so many things that you can do. There's kind of 2 schools here, right? You're either leaving a full-time gig to do a physical work of some other nature that brings you joy, or you're leaving like I did to do something that doesn't bring you in money in itself, but there are things that you can do around it to make the money in a very different way. So in either case, you don't have to starve. You're not without money. You're still making that money. So to combat this fear of how am I going to afford it? You will find work that you can do that allows you to afford the life that you want. You may or may not be earning the same amount of money as you do in your corporate gig or your government gig or whatever your full-time thing is, but the surprising thing is you may actually not need as much money as you have been making now. So when you shift away from when you're in a life that you don't love and a job that's not making you happy, you actually tend to spend more money to make up for that unhappiness. So you kind of you're like, oh gosh, I slave away for, the entire year. I deserve this great vacation. I'm going to splurge on that Armani because it makes me feel better. Just a reminder that there are finer things in life than this job, So when you're actually happy though, you don't need to buy the same amount of things, and having status symbols and things just become unnecessary. So actually money's going to be very different to you when you're doing what you love. So a way to combat that first fear is just take everything I just said and know that the experience waiting for you when you do have the courage to quit is going to be very different than the one that you're having now. Fear number 2. How will I get health care? This one kept me from quitting for so long because I'm like, oh, my full-time corporate gig pays my medical or the health insurance, and how's this all going to work? And the funny thing is that as I moved along in my career and healthcare and contributions all changed, I actually noticed that I was paying more and more and more money into my own healthcare plan, and my company somehow seemed to either be paying less, or I don't know, it just seemed like my bills were getting higher and higher to the point that I realized I was I was losing money every year because raises didn't keep up, of course, with those mounting costs of healthcare. So I was losing money every year to keep this stable job, and it started to not make sense. So when you turn this fear of, how am I going to be able to afford healthcare, right, into a question, how will I be able to afford or get healthcare, well, then you start looking around you and you'll find out there are a ton of ways to get healthcare, and you can do it at all different costs, and they may or may not be significantly different in price than what you're paying now. Go look at what you're paying out of pocket, both before and after tax, into your healthcare now in your full-time job. You may get a little bit of a wake-up call and realize that when you go and look at, there are freelance organizations and different companies that can provide you healthcare coverage outside of corporate, and it may not be as big an expense as you think. Fear number 3, keeping you from quitting your full-time job. I might ruin my career. I don't know, you might, but here's what I can tell you. I was told that I shouldn't quit because, by people that love me. I shouldn't quit because I might ruin my career. And now I can tell you that, number one, the career that I quit wasn't actually going anywhere anyway, so it seemed kind of ruined already. Also, I'm not sure that I wanted that career. So it's like, it's like when someone tries to sell you I remember I was looking for an apartment in New York City at some point in the past, and this guy takes me into this horrible pit. It's got it looks like explosions have gone off. There's roach bombs, spider webs. I mean, it was nasty. I just wanted to get out. I wanted him to stop the tour and get out and go somewhere else. And this guy's like, you better put a bid on it today and put your application in, because if you don't do it today, it's gonna be gone in an hour. And I'm like, thank God, because I don't want it. So the thing is, being told that you might ruin a career that you don't want, think about that. Is that really such a big deal? Also, it may turn out that, going back to the first video, if you haven't watched it, make sure that you watch episode number 1. When you take the time to figure out what makes you happy and all that stuff, it may turn out that the career you actually want is completely different than the one that you ruined. And that because that you quit and took the time to go do something else and change your life dramatically, that you become the perfect person for this other career. So that's how I would tackle that fear. Fear number 4, keeping you from quitting your job. My mother might get mad at me. That was actually a serious fear of mine. My mom was going to be really annoyed with me. It was actually the hardest, even harder than quitting my job, was telling my mother that I was going to quit my job. I actually got her drunk, and I told her in a state of inebriation, and it went really well until the next day when she sobered up, and then had to deal with that. But it was a neat process, because as she gave me all the reasons that I shouldn't quit, I began to realize that I had taken on a lot of her fears and anxieties for me as my own. I didn't realize that a lot of the things that I was afraid of and anxious about were actually things she was afraid of and anxious about that I didn't always agree with, right? So it's possible that your loved ones, your family, your friends maybe not get mad at you, but be very concerned about you and for your well-being, because they are, they've stuck it out and did the retirement thing, or they're sticking it out and doing the retirement thing, and you don't want to, and this is very different, and it brings up a whole set of issues for them. So what I would say is, you know what? Be ready. Some people are going to be jealous of what you're doing. Some people aren't going to like it. Most people probably are going to want to talk you out of it. So just find that 1 or 2 people that will support you and be your cheerleader, and tell them you're going to do that, and ask them, tell them next week I'm going to tell my mom, or I'm going to quit and tell my boss, whatever it is. Have them lined up so that they can talk to you right after you do it, because you'll find that that fear that you once had will translate into such empowerment, and you will love it. So that's how to overcome that fear. Fear number 5, the final fear for this video. this idea is crazy. There's nobody out there that does this and actually succeeds at it. When I quit my job and I was thinking about quitting my job to travel full time, yeah, like I really felt completely nuts. I had all varying reactions. I had my friends lined up who supported me. I had some friends who kind of just nodded and were like, okay, you try that out. And so when I went out there on the road, what happened was that I met a ton of people. I'm like, there's just person after person after person that was out there on the road, had quit their job for the exact same reasons that I had been on the road for anywhere from a period of months to a period of years. And I was so inspired because I found my tribe. Like, they're out there. I knew that I was no longer alone. There's all kinds of people that feel the same feelings I do, that want to do the same things that I'm doing. And so it began to feel a little less crazy. So I think to combat this fear and deal with the feelings around it is to remember that probably right now when you're working in corporate or, again, a full-time gig, you're surrounded by other people whose normal is working in a full-time gig. And so your quitting and doing something else is not normal for them. But it is normal for these people over here. You just need to find them. So you can either start looking for them before you quit and sort of get in the flow and maybe, in a Facebook group or start your own community and, masterminds, or call people and ask for mentorship who are doing this thing that you want to do, so you can find that inspiration and know that they're out there. Or you can just know that whatever it is that you would rather be doing, that once you start doing it, you're going to naturally, again, I talked before about the attraction of the right people and all that. That's going to happen as an impact of you first quitting your job. So again, to combat that fear, just know that you are not crazy and you are not alone. It may simply feel that way because right now you're surrounded by people for them, maybe to them, that what you want to do is crazy and weird or whatever. But just know that your tribe is out there and they are waiting for you and they want to welcome you in. So go ahead and quit that job with confidence. If you liked this video, make sure to hit the like button, and also please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you will get future videos like this. And in the meantime, come on over to my website at heatherbegins.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I will give you even more fun tips and free information to help and inspire you to live a more meaningful life and have fun. See you on the next video. Bye-bye.